Howdy Neighbors, David here. And today on Boondock Stallions, we're going to be doing a double feature, continuing our 31 Days of Horror with The Shining and Doctor Sleep. Now, before we get started, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so I can keep pumping out more content for you guys to like or argue with me about on Facebook. But if you do want to argue with me, hit me up here in the comments, because on Facebook, the bots come in and they'll censor you and block you, and I think a lot of the things you guys say is hilarious. So keep it here on the channel and we'll have a lot more fun. So we're keeping this with the controversial and divisive horror movies because The Shining has got a bit of a bad rap from author of the book, Stephen King himself, and it's not without good reason. I mean, by comparison, and I know I can already feel half of you rolling your eyes out there when I say this, but comparing books to movies, the books are generally better than the movies if you take the time to read the books. And this is, in this case, they butchered so much from the book and left so much out that it really changes the dynamic of the story. I made a video last year theorizing that Jack was in fact gay, and that's the reason he went insane and murdered his family. And I mean, it wasn't that the gay is why he killed him. What I mean is that he resented them. If you start and watch the movie at the very beginning, he never really cares for any of them. He's annoyed by his family at every single scene. And while he's isolated and stuck there with them, he doesn't like them anymore. He goes crazy and murders them. And then you see that he's going through a playgirl while he thinks nobody is looking. And if he's going through a playgirl for any other reason, I mean, I know if I was looking at a playgirl, it would be specifically to be looking at the naked dudes, right? Right. So if he's looking at a thing for naked dudes and he hates his wife and his kid, the hotel could be feeding on the fact that he resents them for not letting him live the life he wants to live. He even makes mention of it himself when he gives that great speech about mouths giving and wanting, having to feed and take care of you and be the certain type of person that you don't want to be, and it's killing your soul. And it's very much him talking about being in the closet and having to present the face of a straight family man, and that could be what the hotel was preying on to drive him crazy. None of that's in the book. That's just a theory speculating about Jack being gay, something I read online and went and watched the movie again and gave an in-depth deep dive to it. So if you want to check that out, go look it up in the live section, or you know what, I'll even go post about it down in the comments here when I'm done. But in the book, the reason Jack goes insane is because the hotel is tapping into his ability to use The Shining. You find out from Dick Halloran that, you know, a lot of people have The Shining. A lot of people don't even know what The Shining is, but as you get older and you use drinking or drugs or medications, all these things dull it, and you forget that you have it, you don't use it, and it just kind of goes away. And people who are young and still pure shine the brightest, which is why Danny himself was so alert to everything that was going on around him in the book. And you also find out that Jack had The Shining. He was very much like his own son when he was younger, only at the hands of his abusive father and his own addiction to alcohol, he dulled his shine and didn't use it, didn't know it was there, was completely unaware of it. And the hotel was able to manipulate that and use him as sort of their vessel to continue on with the killings. And then you get to the end of the book, and this is where Stephen King, you know, all of that backstory for Jack going crazy should have been in the movie, and it was left out. So there's really no motives for why Jack goes crazy, which is, I mean, fine. Some people just snap and go nuts. I mean, it's like Norman Bates said, we all go a little bit mad sometimes. So, I mean, that could have just been him snapping due to the isolation, whatever you want to say. But I feel like everything that was left out that gave his reasoning behind going mad was a little sad. But then you get to the end and Jack just ends up dying in the snow. That was trash. That was a trash ending. I'm sorry, but the book was awesome. The book, Jack is able to break through this kind of sleeping hypnosis where the house is controlling his every move, and remember that he loves his family and does his best to save them. And he knows that the hotel is about to explode and tells everybody to run. He gets them out of there and then basically holds his body in check and allows the boiler to explode in his face and blow up the entire hotel. And that even bleeds through when you get back to the second book, Dr. Sleep, where the hotel stood. There was, in fact, a little bed and breakfast and a restaurant and novelty shop and everything, showing you, you know, come sit on the top of the world and see the great view of the Rockies where the Overlook used to stand. It was, you know, whatever it was. They weren't going to build another hotel there. They just did the little thing. And Dick dies. Dick Halloran dies in the movie. That's terrible. He survived, and lived to ripe old age. He was there when Danny graduated from high school and went to college. He was there when Danny's mother died. He was a very big part of the family, and the movie Doctor Sleep had to retroactively fix all of these things because what they wanted to do was make the Doctor Sleep movie, but the book would not line up as a sequel to the original Stanley Kubrick movie because Kubrick butchered so much of the source material that so much of it gets left out. So they decided instead to go back and find a way to retroactively fix this. I mean, at the end of the book, Dr. Sleep, they changed it completely, which it was a horrible sacrifice, but I feel like it was made up for because they gave it The Shining's original ending. In the way the book ends, spoiler alert if you've never read it, but they're at the Overlook and the ghost of Jack comes back and saves his son from Rose. Like, it's just Jack that comes back and saves him, not any of the other ones. And it was very, little heartfelt moment that Jack was back and he made amends with the son and saved his life and yada, yada, yada. Also, Danny lives at the end of the book. And then in the movie, they just decided, well, we'll just cast somebody else to play a version of Jack, and he doesn't have to be identical. And you know what? Henry Thomas did a phenomenal job. That is the second time Henry Thomas has got to play two iconic horror movie serial killers. Because not only did Henry Thomas, and if you don't know who he is, he was Elliot in the E.T. movie. He also played Norman Bates, a younger version of the original Anthony Perkins Norman Bates in Psycho 4, which was a made-for-HBO movie that was the story of Anthony Perkins calling into a radio show and telling the details of how he murdered his mother, where Henry Thomas was playing the younger him in the flashbacks. And I know I didn't need to tell you all of that. You could just go watch the movie because it's awesome. But he did a phenomenal job being that version of Jack. And what people don't realize is he even says it in the movie. He's not Jack. So you shouldn't expect to see a Jack Nicholson level performance from him. He is the house using Jack's body and speaking out of Jack's body. It's a completely different character. And I think that really worked. It worked out really well. I like the recasting of Shelley Duvall and getting I can't remember the actor's name. I'm so sorry, but they got a new Dick Halloran who was able to come back and speak to Danny through The Shining, which was a cheat, but still fine since they killed off his character in the last movie. Also, Abra makes mention whenever, and I want to keep calling him Obi-Wan because it's Ewan McGregor in the movie. And what's funny is when I read the book, I pictured John Cusack as a grown-up version of Danny Torrance, but Obi-Wan works fine for me too. Love me some Star Wars. I think I have, Last Jedi's back there. I got a bunch of other stuff you can't see. Abra says, if people think seeing an adult and a kid together out in public is weird, if anybody asked, you're just my Uncle Dan. We find out that that's actually true. Abra's mother is actually Danny's half-sister. You find out, and this was mentioned at some point in the original Shining book, that Jack had been unfaithful during his drinking days while he was a professor at a university, and this girl was that he got pregnant was one of the ones that he was unfaithful with. It got her pregnant and had a daughter that he assumingly knew nothing about before he moved away with Danny. So Abra is in fact his niece. They are uncle and niece. So I mean, it was a nice little nod that they made mention of it, like it was just a cover story, but in fact it was a true story, and that's how it went in the book. I really did enjoy them going back to the Overlook. I mean, obviously it's not the exact same hotel. They rebuilt the set and made it a small little set as well as they could from stock footage and production notes and designs and whatnot from the original movie. I really do, in fact, enjoy Dr. Sleep. But like I said, I'm with Stephen King on this one. By comparison, this movie, The Shining, is terrible. to his book. But and I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, but David, haven't you heard? It's Stephen King has come around on that over the last couple of decades." Blah blah blah. No, he didn't. That's a lie. I mean, he says he did, but the only reason he did is because he was told to if he wanted the rights to remake the movie for TV, which he did in 2000 with Steven Weber, and it was awesome. And you can fight me if you want, but it was better than the original. It was longer. It had more details. I mean, the special effects were made for TV, but I mean, made for TV in the early 2000s is still better than a movie made in the 1970s. So holla at your boy. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. Those are really good movies. And I know it's All Hallows Eve tonight. Just kidding. But tomorrow I'll be doing my super live stream where we discuss the most divisive and controversial movie, Sleepaway Camp. Now, Sleepaway Camp is an awesome classic movie, and I know that political correctness has not caught up to it yet, because if it has, people would be asking for the movie to be burned. But I want to make an argument for that movie because it is not any kind of phobic. It is not any type of, well, I mean, there's misogyny in the writing. Those characters were directly created and designed to be misogynistic. So if they're an asshole, it's because they're reading the script where they're supposed to be an asshole. So we're going to forgive them for that. But I know the movie's got a controversial subject that we will talk about tomorrow when I live stream at 8 p.m. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.